Marzano has provided a table as a lesson plan for presenting critical content while facilitating the summarization process. It is broken down into the step and process for this. The first step would be to identify the critical content that you want to teach and chunk it into 3 10-minute segments. Then create a template or decide which type of tool you would want students to record their notes on. You would want to make sure that the chunking is appropriate and that you do not talk longer than the designated 10 minutes. Get ready for the first chunk of the lesson to begin. Prepare your students to be in listening mode with their pencils down, leaving their minds free to engage with what you are saying. If they can think of something that they really want to write down, encourage them to be disciplined enough to wait a few minutes. If they start writing while you're talking, they may miss some very important details. At the end of the first chunk, students should quickly write down words and phrases that seem to summarize the content that you presented. Once they have written their phrases, direct them to talk with their partners about what they have thought and why. As students are engaging in this discussion, walk around the room to listen to what students are saying or check what they have actually written. Another way to check for understanding is to ask students to write keywords or phrases on their whiteboards and hold them up. Next, present the second chunk of the lesson, and again, be resistant to the temptation to talk for more than 10 minutes. At the end of the second chunk, direct students to work with their assigned partner and again make a list of any keywords or phrases that they heard that contained important information. During this discussion time, keep a close eye on groups that might be struggling or having difficulty and provide them prompting or questioning to help them move along. Be careful though and avoid the temptation to give students the answers or fill in the blanks for them. Make sure that you hold students accountable for their own thinking. Now it's time to go through this process one last time with the third chunk of information. Now it is time for students to put together all of their final sets of keywords and phrases. Encourage students to talk it out with their partner and make modifications to their notes if needed during the discussion. The next step would be to have students take all of their words and phrases and create a summary sentence. This can be very challenging for students, so it's really important that you have modeled this for them. If students are still struggling, you could pick a group to come to the board and write down their keywords and phrases, and then model for the class the process that you would go through to think through the critical content to create a summary sentence. If the group you chose did not do an adequate job of selecting keywords and details, take this opportunity to discuss with students how important their listening and thinking skills are to writing a good summary sentence. If they do not select the critical ideas and key details, they will not be able to write a good summary sentence. If you find yourself in this situation, you could then ask for additional ideas from the class and explain to students that it's really important to get that critical content during the lesson in order to write a good summary sentence. The process that Marzano has outlined can also work for reading a text. The first step is to select the appropriate text. Then chunk it into 3 manageable parts, and lastly, create a template to help students record keywords and phrases. Make sure to provide instruction to students on how to engage in choral reading with their partner, and make sure that you provide enough time for students to complete the reading. When the partners are done with the reading, they should talk about the keywords and phrases they selected or thought about during the reading as being important and why. They can record their thoughts on the graphic organizer that you provided. For chunk 2 of the lesson, give students another reasonable amount of time to read and adequately process the second chunk of text. Then direct students to write the keywords and phrases they identified on their graphic organizer once again. Have students then talk with their partner as they did before, and then remind them to be thinking about whether this second chunk gave them additional information and to get rid of what is unimportant. Continually monitor students' processing and recording by walking around and providing questioning and scaffolding. Using the same steps as earlier, complete the reading of the third chunk and continually walk around and monitor while students are chorally reading to ensure that students are fully investing in the processing of the text. If you have modeled the process of combining keywords and phrases from several chunks of the text in a summary statement, it is time to release the students to do this on their own. If students are not ready to be totally released at this point, model for them again how to take all of the keywords and phrases and put them together in a summary sentence.